Hello, everyone. I'm Amissa, Marketing Manager here at Upkeep. Thank you so much for attending today's webinar titled Mastering the Five Pillars of Hiring Excellence, Building a Robust Maintenance and Reliability Workforce. Next slide, please.
Let's see if we can get it to go.
So before we get started, let's go over ways that you can participate in the webinar today. You can type questions into that little questions question mark feature. We are going to have time for Q&A at the end of the webinar, and we're going to do our best to make sure we answer all your questions. Also, if you have any comments or anything you want to contribute to the group, you can go ahead and type those in the chat feature. So you see the little chat icon with the little message bubble. Just go ahead and type comments in there. So let's go ahead and test it out. Let us know in the chat where you're joining us from and what the weather is like where you're at. I'll start. So I'm actually in kind of mid-southern Oregon, and right now it's snowing like crazy. So it's very cold and snowy. Hi, Nick. Hey, Kyle. How about you, Chris?
I'm in sunny Jacksonville, Florida at the beaches here, and it's about 55 or 60 out today. So nice clear day.
All right, we got Kyle's in Wisconsin, unseasonably warm. That's nice. I wish that's what was the case here.
So we've got Canada, Victoria, and Calgarians.
Texas, Madisonville, sunny and great. I'm jealous.
Wisconsin's great.
Let's see. Greetings from Miami, Florida. I'm guessing it's fairly warm there, well, comparatively. Benoit, it's snowing. Where are you at, Benoit? Oh, New Mexico, sunny and 48. Sarita. Danny's in California in the Moreno Valley, 53 and cloudy. Awesome. Well, it seems like you guys got the hang of how to use the chat. So why don't we go ahead and get started with the webinar?
Okay.
So I am me and Upkeep. We're really happy to welcome our expert speaker today, Chris. He is the founder of Progressive Reliability. And we spoke with Chris at SMRP in October. And after talking with him, we knew we needed to do a webinar with him. So we know that through some of our own surveys and reporting that we've done, that finding and retaining skilled maintenance and reliability talent is a huge challenge right now in the maintenance and reliability community. And so we wanted to do this webinar with Chris because he's an expert in talent. And we were excited to learn from him his expertise on how to find and hire and retain top maintenance and reliability talent. So welcome, Chris.
Thanks a lot, Amissa. It's good to see everybody here today. And yeah, as you mentioned at SMRP, we were kind of talking about one of the biggest issues that a lot of Upkeep clients are coming across is in the talent world. And I happen to be the founder and managing partner here of a company that focuses exclusively on reliability talent. And I am really grateful, excited, and challenged by being with you here today. I'm grateful because it's always nice to be able to share what we're doing and kind of spread the word of what we are. Grateful, of course, to have your participation, to have you all here to spend and invest time with us today. And we want to make sure that's worthwhile. And I'm challenged because we've got to share some things that are really, really big to overcome. It's what most of our industry is really up against. And we want to be able to get you better at the end of this webinar at your hiring and at your talent management process, or even how you think about it than you were from the beginning. So today we're going to discover how to attract the best applicants. How do you get those people in? How do you market to the right folks that even you know yourself without having a marketing degree or frankly, marketing being any part of your role? How to predict whether or not somebody's going to be the right person, and how to define the meaning in your department, in the work that you do. It's not just showing up every day doing the job. What is it for? What does it really mean? Why does it really, really matter? And also, we want to get crystal clear on how to eliminate some of the strife and turbulence from your team dynamics. Because at the end of the day, it's not about finding people, it's about finding and keeping great people. So that's what we want to talk about. Now, have you ever wondered, this is the real piece that we want to get into. What is it like to be able to just completely trust an empowered team to accomplish the goals you've set out? Have you wondered what's it like to have immediate access to the right specialists when you need them, as the role comes up? And have you wondered really what it would be like to live in a world where you didn't have to think all the time that just good people are hard to find? So today, we're going to discover how to build a process that actually magnetizes the skills and talents when you need them. We're going to put together really what are the bits and pieces that are missing from your world-class team, from the team that you deserve, and from the team that you worked so hard in your career to be able to be a part of. And then finally, how do you systematically identify those hidden gems, those really great people out there that they might be out there, they're missing, they're lurking. What are you missing, and what are those signs? So today, I promise, we're going to give you data, we're going to give you the information, and we're going to prepare you to be able to approach the hiring market in a meaningful way. I promise that we're going to be able to really understand what are the phases and just have a lot more knowledge, frankly, than anybody else or anybody you're competing against for these talented people to join your roles. So start out, we've got to really look at, okay, what are the problems we're facing? What are we really, really up against today? And turnover is a big one. Having people leave, having people just come and go. We've got a revolving door there for a reason. We want to make sure that we avoid that kind of work style. The failed hires, it's a real heartbreaker. You've got somebody, you're ready, you've made all the effort, you've gotten the job approved, you've gone through all the interviews, you get somebody in sometimes within 2 weeks. We know that it's not right, maybe within a couple months, maybe they wind up wandering off within 4 or 5 months. It's a huge problem that we want to get rid of. Unfulfilled job openings. This is a hard one, because why aren't we getting people? Why aren't we seeing applicants? Where are the talented people hiding that we're looking for? And the other problem is disengagement. As a talent company, we want to find people that are going to stay and grow with your organization. We don't want people coming in, just punching in and punching out every day. We want people that are actively engaged in our projects and really, mentally bringing their full presence every single day. So we did some research before this webinar. Miss and I were talking about this last week. I pulled these numbers fresh for you. Currently, there's 9.6 million job openings. And I think, can we all agree? We know that there's a lot of job openings out there. There's a lot of people, there's a lot of competition. There's 12.7 million people employed in manufacturing. Now, I know we work in a diversity of backgrounds here within the Upkeep community. I just stuck to manufacturing because it was the easiest numbers to find. But yeah, 9.6 million openings for 12.7 million people. It's a pretty big hole, and it's a pretty big challenging place to be. So what are the 5 phases of the talent cycle? That's really what we're here to understand, and this is what we're here to grow about and grow within. So that's the real question. We want to know, what are these phases? How does somebody's career cycle really work? And where can we fill in gaps along that process? And why do we want to do that? Because we want to save that time that people are putting out on the wrong employee, on that wrong hire, on being able to manage up folks that frankly you took because you had to. We want to stop hemorrhaging the opportunity costs that are going on, the capital costs that happen with maintenance debt and not having everything in your shop up to date and having your PMs done. And the real thing is, we want to stop letting these other companies take the people that we should be hiring. We want to stop letting our competitors and the other people in the market from getting the people that belong on our team, the best team, the team that we've worked so hard to be able to build. So I want to start out with a little bit of detail around kind of what does this world look like and what's going on just from a numbers perspective. Well, first of all, a lengthy application process, a lengthy application form, it can weed out 90% of applicants, and not weeding them out in the way you want. Really, just in other words, 90% of people, if they're really great and really engaged and they're really workable, they have a job within 2 to 3 weeks of looking. So if we have a really long process, immediately you're already down to 10% of the available market. Now, 57% of job seekers will lose interest in this hiring process. This is where you see people ghosting and falling off all the time. It's because the process is taking too long. It's archaic. There's something missing going on. And that's a real problem that we want to be able to take a look at actionably. And by the way, in our 5 pillars document, we've actually got citations for all of these. So these facts are backed up. But this final one is one of my favorite quotes about recruiting. The CEO of Capital One had said that people spend 2% of their time recruiting and 75% of their time fixing their recruiting mistakes. Anybody out there really feel like, hey, I'm spending way too much time fixing the people that I've got, whereas if I had the right person, hey, I wouldn't have to spend so much time. I'd be able to go find more right people. So please, by the way, put your hand up if you agree. I know there's a little smiley face in the corner there. Thumbs up would be great. I just want to make sure I'm hitting points that work for you guys as we go along. So if everybody's getting it, please let me know. If you agree, if this is a great point, please go ahead and just drop a thumbs up or whatever emoticon you're feeling. So that way we know. Thank you guys. William, I appreciate it. Nick, same here. I want to make sure that we're getting you exactly what you want for having invested your time today. So here's some of the other challenges, and this is the real kind of anxiety. A lot of our most experienced people are edging closer to retirement. It's just part of the phase of the universe that we're in right now. Most of the most experienced people are moving on. Thank you all. Those are a lot of great thumbs up, and I really appreciate it. We know that competition's increasing as well as costs are going up. We don't need to talk about the last couple of years, but that's definitely something on the table. And the world, as we've become more connected, anybody feel like it's also gotten a lot noisier out there? These thumbs up are great, by the way. I really appreciate it, everybody. How do we get through this noise of everything? There's information everywhere. There's bots creating content that doesn't really mean anything. There's so much noise to get through. And finally, this is the PM debt problem. Your undermanaged equipment, it's inching closer to failure by the minute. We want to get ahead of our PMs. We want to have the right people out there. We've built a process. We've got a killer CMMS. We know what we need to do. We need people to do it. So this is why we really need to work on this today and get in touch with these. Now, real quick, Amissa did a great job of introducing, but I just wanted to give you a little background fast on why I'm here. And so I hope you guys don't mind, but I'm just going to share this real quick. I've been in professional recruitment for over a decade. So in that period, I've overseen thousands of job interviews. This is actually my 3rd company in the talent space. The first company I was a part of, actually, we grew 24,000% in 3 years. That was Inc. 5000. Inc.'s a business magazine that puts out a list of the 5,000 fastest growing companies in the country. My very first talent management firm wound up being number 3. So there's an innate understanding, both personally and within the team here, on what does it take to get a hire? How do you manage a lot of hires? Because some of us have really big projects. We've come across clients that have 27 maintenance openings just on one site alone. How do we manage that? This is the experience that we're going to bring to the table today. And this is what I want to share with you in terms of what we have. So next big question. What are the 5 pillars going to get you? At the end of the day, what we're after is more uptime. We want better maintenance, and we want to increase our business value. At the end of the day, it's about what's in it for the business. What's in it, not just within your department, but for the entire organization that you're serving. So our challenge, and these are kind of some of the numbers and a little more of the metrics behind these challenge points that we're going to overcome in our 5 pillars. The census predicts 2.1 million unfulfilled jobs within industrial by 2030. So this is why we have to be sharp, pay attention, and get our skills out today. The average job tenure is 2.7 years. And to put that into kind of more of a realistic perspective, if you consider you're in a role for 10 years and the people under you are only there for an average of 2.7, By year 10, think about it, 2.7, then you're going to call it 3, 6, 9. By year 10, you're starting your fourth entire team. So not only is hiring an incredibly important skill, but so is creating the environment where people stay. The cost of a failed hire, we estimate at minimum is 100% of what their annualized salary is. When you consider taking them on, the fees, the interviews, the time, the training, everything that goes along, even if you only have somebody for 3 months, look at how far behind you are on the next hire 3 months later to have 6 months to stand them up. So we can't afford to have failed hires. The Bureau of Labor Statistics says that demand, and we just took electricians for this one, by the way, just to give you a small subset. The demand for electricians is set to grow 6% within the next decade. Okay, but the labor pool will shrink by 14%. So it's not only are we looking at a bigger demand, but we're looking at less market to work within. That's why I'm so happy you guys are here today. And that's why really we want to make sure that you're paying attention to these points and really get something great out of this. And finally, this is something you may not think about. It's not in your realm, but I want to put it on your radar. Your applicant tracking system, your internal HR systems that we're using. How old is it? When was the last time it was, forget upgraded, even updated? Or when was the last time you really looked at how is this machine sifting through applicants and weeding people out that, hey, you may really want to talk to. They may be really great. And for some automation reason, you're missing them. These are the things that you're all up against today. These are the things that are going on kind of off the radar that I want you to be aware of. And these are the things we're going to talk through to be able to get you in the direction that you want to go. Now, a lot of us assume these are facts. We like to present them as myths. They're an elephant that may not actually be in the room anymore. And that's the not enough time. If we're effective at what we do, time isn't going to be as big of an issue as we feel it is. Not enough budget. Again, efficiencies and being able to know what we look for and designing the frameworks really does a lot in terms of making a repeatable, duplicatable process. So I know sometimes, well, a lot of times, dealing with humans is not quite as predictable as dealing with machines, but there are frameworks that we can use, and we want to make sure that we put those in place. And finally, recruitment is the same everywhere. A lot of people think, hey, the recruitment process is what it is. HR directors do what they do. This is just kind of something that goes on. We think it's a myth, and we really want to share what you can do within these 5 pillars. So these are the frameworks. These are the points, not just in recruitment, but in your career. And most people only focus on point number 1 and point number 3. That's what gets a lot of the attention. That's what gets a lot of the action, right? Getting applicants and interviewing them, getting applicants and engaging them. Well, there are other points to your talent strategy that are extremely important, often overlooked. And by paying a little bit more attention to these, especially points 2, 4, and 5, you can really capitalize on not only bringing in the best people, but keeping them and engaging your people to attract more great people. It's something called the virtuous cycle. We all know what a vicious cycle is, right? Things just seem to get worse and worse and worse and worse. Well, if a vicious cycle exists, there has to be a virtuous cycle. That's where we do good things and more things and more things. So to tell you a great story, I first heard about the virtuous cycle when Jeff Bezos was describing the growth of Amazon, but not just Amazon, it was the AWS. They have a whole IT infrastructure business that's amazing. And what happened was initially when Amazon came out, they were, remember, just selling books online. Then they took over all the Barnes and Nobles. And then as they did that, they wanted to sell more stuff. Well, they also decided that in order to save money, they went and built their own IT equipment. Then, in order to save more money, they said, hey, if we're going to have all this IT equipment that we're using for our huge online database, why don't we sell space on this IT equipment to the rest of the world, which means they were able to build more stuff and do it for cheaper. And that's why on the back end, one of the biggest revenue generators for Amazon, their store and what you buy online is one of the smallest things they do. AWS was built on that virtuous cycle of getting one thing right, then the next thing, then reinvesting. And I want to put you on a similar virtuous cycle. And forgive me, that was a really quick way of going through that. But I wanted you to understand where companies really get in a dominant place by winning each and every step and growing from there. So Application generation. This is the first step whenever you've got to bring somebody into a new role. A job seeker spends an average of 49.7 seconds reading a job ad. So I think you all know you've seen advertisements that work. You've seen advertisements that turn you off. I really advise, if you have a position that you're struggling to fill, go look at other job ads in your area, in your market for those same roles. What are you competing against? And if you're to go on Indeed and just scroll through really quickly and look at everything out there, I think you'll see how quickly a job will stand out, or they all start to look the same. This is a place for you to really be able to grow and pay attention. 68% of candidates will trust a company's social media post. So you have a social media presence, you have a lot going on out there. There's a lot of trust that is built in that engagement, in what shows up in your LinkedIn feed. And these aren't just the glossy posts about everything's, touchy-feely and great. This is, hey, here's the challenges we do. Here's what we provide. Here's our company's mission. Here's what we're doing to make a better world. I think you see there's a lot of companies out there that have, especially around Super Bowl time, they have ads on the impact of what their company does. Not just here's our brand, buy our stuff, but this is how we make a difference in the world. Pay attention to those ads. And when you see some marketing that really makes sense and speaks to you, grab that and make sure you're using that when you're essentially branding your team and when you have any interaction about bringing somebody on your company. It's taking that marketing mindset without having to get a marketing degree. And finally, 58% of candidates have said that company culture is more important than salary. We see this all the time. Believe it or not, salary ranges are pretty well established. And with most of our clients, we don't have a hard time or a big conversation in terms of getting to the market strength in terms of salary. Manufacturing's great at understanding where they need to be. We don't have problems in terms of benefits packages or competitive. Everything out there is very, very competitive. The one thing that stands out is the company culture. And the one thing that gets a great professional to leave their job is a culture that they're not a fit for, that they're not enjoying. So this is where we want to spend our time, especially on the intake side. Coming out and just saying, hey, we got a great job that pays well. Look, that's fine if you want a mercenary, but if you want somebody truly invested, pay attention to that point. And we're going to talk a little bit about culture, how that goes on through a few stories here, because I want you to understand culture isn't just what we call bonuses and barbecues and some of these accessories. In the tech world, they like to show their ping pong tables and snacks, but ultimately that is not a culture. It's the interactions that we have with one another. It's the relationships we build. It's what is valued and what is rewarded. That's what really makes a culture. And to bring that home, I just wanted to share a quick story about one of our clients. I want to go through a couple client stories. We went into a site of SK Foods, and they had a maintenance manager that hadn't had a Saturday off in 6 months. They had about 7 open positions at this particular site within their maintenance department. And I'm sure you can imagine the overtime, the strain, the challenge with the maintenance manager, the inability to really coach people when you're that understaffed. So they brought us in, and within 6 weeks, we had placed 4 people. And actually within 8 weeks, we had 5 or 6 of those positions settled, and they had a couple that covered themselves. Again, coming in and really filling out a team and attacking this issue was able to stabilize that department, get in really, really good people. And ultimately, our maintenance manager got some Saturdays. That was a really, really big impact. And that's, again, just having the right access to the talent market. The next piece, application nurturing. This is a great secret. I really love this one a lot, because the ideal person you're looking for might not be looking for a job today. Your dream house might not be on the market today. The really best stuff out there is spoken for, okay? So we want to talk about the nurturing process, because let's face it, if you've got a lot of positions and they come up often, you're going to want to nurture the people that may not be ready for it today. 48% of candidates are researching a company's online content before they decide to apply. How many of you have gone out to buy a car and know more about that car than the salesperson you're sitting across from? Okay, we all today do far more research before we ever engage than we ever have before. This is the information age. This is the social age. We're asking our friends. We're looking around. So in the nurturing, I want you to really consider that, for one, people are doing a lot more research beforehand, but also for you to get great in the future, we want you seeding the right people over time, because you may not get that perfect person today. But if you can nurture that relationship in 6 months, in 8 months, in a year and a half, when it comes up, that match takes place. And that's what we want to happen. And we want to start building up this virtuous cycle of great relationships with great talent. 82% of candidates expect to hear back from a company after applying. This one is a big nurturing failure that we see out there. Somebody will come in, they'll apply for a job, they'll get an auto response, this one isn't for you, and that's the end of it. No interaction, no follow-up. And look, I know you're going to get far more applications that aren't qualified than the ones you're actually looking for. It's a big job to sift through everything. We do it every single day. Having that personal touch, though, knowing, hey, somebody reached out, somebody sent me a personal note. Hey, personally, thank you so much for reaching out to us. Unfortunately, we're not able to move forward. We look forward to talking to you. You know, that just having a personal touch instead of an automation when somebody's reaching out to you, it means a ton. I don't know if any of you have ever looked for a job. It's really nice to know that the person on the other side is listening. It's really nice. I've worked with a lot of veterans looking to transition. I've volunteered with a veteran organization for transitioning veterans coming out of the military over. The one thing that breaks their hearts is just kind of submitting that resume into a black hole. Being an organization that cares and being somebody who pays attention, it just does a ton to make an impact on the market that you're working in, especially if you're in a smaller town. People talk, if you're in a smaller environment or more of a rural market, you got to treat everybody, not that they're the person you want, but imagine everybody you interact with knows the person you're looking to hire. That's how you do a really good nurture. And so I wanted to share an example of a nurturing process that we had to do. So Angelini Pharma is a client that came to us looking for a reliability engineer. We really had to nurture this position. It took us 13 candidates in 6 months to fill the role. And that was because we were looking for the right person and the right timing. And admittedly, they were in a rural area. This was one where we really had to get to know people. We really had to get to know the role. And again, these higher level, especially these reliability engineer roles, especially with as difficult as relocation is, imagine, keep in mind, if you've got a higher level job, somebody today has a 2 or 3% interest rate on their home that they own, and they're looking to move for a 7% interest rate. We've really got to know, there's no way that you guys can buy your way out of that. You have to find those right relationships, and you really have to nurture what this is going to do for somebody's future. And you have to find the right future facing people. So that was just a good example of sometimes these can take a long time, but if you stick with it, you can get the right match. And I'm telling you, we found a guy who was a homeowner who moved, and he said, listen, my wife is going to sell the home. I'm coming immediately. I cannot wait to join this culture. He's as happy as can be. And I know this took place 3 months ago. It's been a wildly successful match, but that was because of that real long-term nurture. And believe me, we don't want to go through that many candidates. Usually we get them hired in about 4 submissions, but if we have to, we take our time, we make that right match, and we make sure that people stick. The next point, and this is what everybody knows, is the interview, which a lot of times, again, if you're not part of the talent process, you're just looking to weed out to get to the right person. Admittedly, a lot of times the right person doesn't come with the right resume. So I want to warn you, in terms of interviewing and in terms of this interview side, if somebody's a great engineer and they're super talented, they're probably not great at writing resumes. Anytime I see 100% perfect buttoned up resume, this person's probably had 7 jobs in the last 7 years. So we want to remember, as we're going through the interview, and as knowing everybody we're in front of, even if they're not the right person, they likely know the person you're looking for. We want to make sure that we have a structured interview series. 81% more effective at predicting job performance. Why? Because we're asking similar questions. We're going through similar phases. We have a process, and everybody here in especially within the maintenance and reliability world is familiar with process. Well, a consistent process lets you know where the breaks are in it. So that way you understand as you go about hiring, especially for volume positions, where are we picking things up? What can we add? And then you've got a process you can work with. That's a really, really good point in terms of having structured interviews. A poor interview, and I'll explain this one a little bit. If somebody has a poor interview experience, they got a better than 50% chance of telling people about how their interview experience went and why. Again, this is that putting out yourself into the market and what you have and treating everybody as if they know the right person. So we want to make sure that we're interviewing and selling them on our company, on our culture, what it is. And of course, you're going to screen out the people that don't work. And of course, we're going to screen out the people that aren't a fit. But as we go through that initial engagement, we want them to be excited enough to get the word on the street and do the grassroots work for us that, hey, we have a really great company and a really great opportunity. Imagine somebody comes in, interviews and says, it wasn't right, it didn't work out, but there was something special about them. We want to know how to do that. And again, having a structure and really being able to take any interview opportunity as a reason to share about what you like about your job and share your passion for your work is going to do a phenomenal job at building out this long-term opportunity and the long-term, the long tail of doing really, really good at our job on the virtuous cycle. Finally, 70% of professionals would not work at a leading company if it has a bad work culture. This goes to a name brand, only goes so far. We've talked to a number of big name companies and the reviews online are horrible, or there's really big challenges. Well, admittedly, sometimes we have to turn down clients because if they don't have a culture where people are going to stay, it's just bailing out a leaky boat. So having that culture, or hey, if you're looking to change your culture, here's why we're changing the culture. If you've got reputation issues, which can happen, and you're actively working together on a team to change that reputation, here's why. And just as another example, we've got a client right now who in the past has had a reputation of kind of everybody that worked there has never been wrong. And they went to change that. We've actually talked to some people, frankly, there's vacancies because that legacy mindset was being removed. And here's what we're doing to move through that, being able to tell that story and just being aware of it, being aware of your online reviews. It can do miles to show this is what we're doing and the changes we're making. That's going to help your interview process because, again, people are doing research ahead of time. They may find things that, admittedly, you don't know that they found in that research period. We want to make sure we're in front of it. So just as another example here, we've worked with WR Grace for a number of years and put together a lot of their high-level positions. We've become their go-to for reliability recruitment. And the reason we've done that is that we really understand an interview process together. The reason they've got multiple sites across the country that we've hired for. But again, the reason we've become a go-to for them is we know everything about the culture. We know everything about the opportunity. We know where they are in their reliability journey, and we know what they need as well as what they've accomplished. Being able to share that together, it's made a world of difference. And this is why we regularly have a great back and forth. And they also fill roles themselves too. I mean, we're here as a supplement. We shouldn't be, your outsourced recruitment partner should never be the end all be all do all. You have to own this internally. And you folks out here, you really have to know and believe in what you're doing for your team before anybody like me can even help in the first place. So finally, this is point 4. This is where we get to where the rubber meets the road. You've got somebody in, you've done your nurturing, you've hired them. A lot of times onboarding is 2 weeks of orientation, some safety training, good luck. This is where a lot of challenges can fall apart, frankly. We understand that there's some initial logistics, but companies with a formal process have a 54% better new hire retention rate. The reason we talk about a formal process is not just so much of, hey, here you go, good luck, but setting somebody up with a real mentor, getting people involved in all the opportunities they have in their career path at your site from the beginning, the trainings that are coming up for them to participate, getting that booked and scheduled at the beginning, having a real clear understanding of why did they choose you? What other jobs did they pick you against? Because you can ask when they start for you. Well, really get to know that and feed that, because that first month or 2 is kind of like a honeymoon period, but it's really months 3, 4, 5, and 6 that you can break somebody out of their old ways and break them into the new way of what you're doing. You have, once you get through that newness, then we really get to carry the weight of doing something different, of making that impact and making sure they feel it and they see it. Regular check-ins just go a long way to do this. So you should have a 6-month honeymoon period phase lined up. And that's a really, really great process. Of course, employees with a mentor, 5 times more likely to be promoted than those who don't. And there's the come in and we'll pair you with somebody. Ultimately, when we talk about a mentor, it's somebody that your new employee knows, likes, trusts, gets to know. It's super important because that's where that learning by osmosis takes place. That's where that understanding the mission takes place. So I don't know, have any of you guys had a really great mentor? Can anybody here, think about where they are today versus where they could have been without those mentors? I've got them myself, and I'm sure you do out there as well. I mean, consider the inspiration and the really challenging projects you've been through, but having that right person to go to and having that right person to reach out to, they're probably at a different company, being able to call and text. Yeah, that makes a huge difference. So we want to make sure that we're nurturing that as we're training and onboarding people, as we're getting through that initial honeymoon period. And then finally, 94% of people would stay at a company longer if it invested in their career development. We've won multiple head-to-head battles for our clients against competitors because we knew what the training program was and we discussed it. We have people coming in who just want to get more certifications and more education opportunities. It's kind of a secret at some companies. The training opportunities exist, but it's in a book somewhere. We need to get that out to the forefront to people. That really does a big difference in not only bringing them on, keeping them engaged, keeping folks interested. So that's another one that we want to talk about. And, with that, we've done a lot of work with Motion Industries last year. Tremendous, huge company. 2 out of our 3 hires in the last quarter took a paycheck to join Motion. And it's because people who really care about their career and they really care about the skills, especially as they reach the middle of their career, they want to grow, they want to learn. And I can think of 2 who took that little micro step back to know that, hey, within a year or 2, here's where my skill set's going to be. Instead of being in a stagnant place, I get to go and be a consultant to multiple sites. Hey, instead of, we had a salesperson that we hired within one of their parts departments, and he had worked with other Motion employees in the past and took a 20% cut just to say, hey, I like what these people were about. I've met this team. I've seen their employees. I want a piece of this, and I'm willing to take the step to be able to grow in this direction. So that just goes to show you, we see this happen all the time. It's not just pay, it's culture, it's growth, it's where we're going. And let's face it, those are the kinds of people that we want to work with as well. And then finally, the last big one, which almost nobody thinks about, is retention and ascension. So we talked a lot about onboarding and getting people in, but what do we want to get them in? Because we want to stay, we want them to stay, and we want them to grow. So 82% of employees feel more motivated to work harder when they receive recognition. And if you get a copy of our 5-pillar document, I've actually put multiple phases and multiple ways of being able to do recognition, because it's not just a pat on the back or an email or a bonus. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. So I don't know if you guys have ever come across the 5 love languages. Well, there's probably about 6 or 7 different recognition languages that you can use, so to speak. 77% of employees are more likely to stay with their company if it provides opportunities to learn and grow. And we see that happen a lot, especially with reliability. People grow as far as they can get in their organizations. So they need to move from a company that has 1 site to a company that has 5 sites. They need to move and cross-pollinate to a place where there is more headroom. This is a big deal, and we've got to make sure we're acting on this headroom, and we've got to make sure we're following up, because a lot of times people who are really great at their job and they're really great at their work are so focused in what they're doing every day, they don't take a minute to look up. And then all of a sudden they say, hey, I've been looking down so long, but nothing's really changed. So as leaders, It's our job is to encourage those opportunities. It's our job to become that mentor and encourage people. Hey, have you considered this direction? Have you considered going here, joining this group, talking to these people, going in this direction, meeting this person? Sometimes we have to facilitate it because people, especially practitioners, are really great at their practice, but not so much on the kind of outwardly facing things in doing the work they do every day. So for us to encourage that makes a world of difference. And finally, companies with a strong learning culture are 46% more likely to be the leader in their industry. So there's a lot of data that states that, hey, working on learning, on education, on getting new skills, it breaks people out of their routine. It gives somebody something. And frankly, as leaders in a company, it's our job to facilitate that and make sure that people are picking up on exactly where it is that they're looking to go. So those are the 5 pillars. And the animations are great, by the way, Missa. So what's going to be your next success? This is the question, right? What is it that you can take from these 5 pillars today? And I'm sure there's one point or two that stuck out. What can you do with that right now? How can you put that to use today? What's something that you might miss at any point in the hiring process that can help you? And here's the great thing about growth. All you have to do is start. Doing one little thing leads to another little thing. That's how virtuous cycles are built, right? So we want to think about, where can we start? What can we take today from this information to make a little change and then add a little? It's the ripple effect, right? Even if you're just throwing a little pebble into a still pond, it does ripple out. So don't be afraid to do something small. Big changes always start out with small little steps, with, again, taking over selling books online. You're not going to build an Amazon until you sell books from your garage on the internet, right? That's how this growth takes place. So I will tell you, the 5 pillars is really not for anybody who's comfortable in what they're doing right now. If what you're doing is working, you're fine where you're at, there's really no need to go into the document or go any further. You know, if this is kind of interesting, but if this is somebody else's job, or frankly, getting the hires right is somebody else's responsibility, there's no need to go any further. And that's okay. There's nothing wrong with it. But ultimately, what we're talking about today isn't really for you. This information is really for people who want to take ownership of their team. What we do is for people who want to take ownership of not just what's going on in your own career, but really you get a lot of reward from helping other people. If you get a lot from seeing the inspiration light go on, you know, if you can remember back, I remember in my school years, the teachers that made the biggest impact weren't necessarily the ones that I liked the most, but they were the ones that were willing to give that nudge, that were willing to say, hey, go in this direction, and really had a framework of saying, hey, you can do better, and here's why. These are the people that we want to work with, and these are the folks that we really think this is it. So can I share with you guys how I can help? And really, do you mind if I share just a little bit before we get right into the Q&A on what I can do? So thumbs up, anybody? Anybody see? Want to learn how you can go a little deeper on this? Perfect. All right. Thanks, Amissa. I got you. So ProRely.com/5 pillars. Go ahead and grab the document. I think it's 48 pages. All the citations we have in there of all the facts that we've given are presented. It's a really easy read. We've got all the different ways that you can give, encouragement and let people know they're doing their job right. It's just a deeper version of research. We want you to grab it, take it, run with it, go be great at hiring. Go, or you know what? Another great starting point is, I hope that today's woken you up to maybe a couple things that you're not doing right. And that's a great starting point as well. Knowing what, this could use some improvement. Your gut instinct is going to push you in the right direction. You're armed with it. I really appreciate the attention, the thumbs up, everybody listening today. So Amissa, I'm going to kick it back to you for questions. We're 45 minutes right on the dot. And guys, thank you so much for listening to this presentation. And thank you for making the investment of your time with us here. This is just, it means the world. We want to see people happier in their work and meaningful work, frankly. It's what we're all here for.
Thanks, Chris. Yeah, I really was resonating and connecting with a lot of the stats and information you were sharing. So really engaging. We do have a question that I feel like is actually a really great question. I am so sorry. I have no idea how to pronounce your name. And I don't even want to try because I feel like I will butcher it. So I'm just going to paraphrase the question that was asked. How applicable are these stats and this information you're sharing with us, how applicable is this to the international community? Because they're in countries where unemployment is rampant, and there's some candidates that don't have the luxury to choose among employers. Like, what would you say to in that type of situation?
So I've done a fair amount of international work in the past, and I placed somebody who had to be based in Quebec who would be flying into northern middle of nowhere, Canada. We've worked with some other markets, and so I think if I understand right, the question is, how does this apply when you're in a market where there's a lot of unemployment? How do you apply these? So
Yeah.
In a different market dynamic, at the end of the day, we're looking for the right person. And what you want to do is you want to attract the right people to you. So even though there's a lot of unemployment, the competition's in the other side. But what I would really consider still is getting the right people in the door, because you can use all this information in terms of what people are looking for, but you can also turn it in the opposite direction and really figure out, okay, well, let's look opposite. What is it that we have to offer? What is the right candidate looking for? Because at the end of the day, the most competent are 10%, right? So, 10% is the top 10%, right? Or the top 5% of the top 5%. You still want to use all these strategies of creating the right culture and the right environment, because the very best people are probably likely employed. The very most competent likely are engaged. And so really you want to use this as a filter to find the best people. You want to use this as a filter to ensure that your onboarding goes right. You want to use this as a filter to make sure once you get somebody in the door, even though you may be the only option in town, if you really want them engaged, they better be training and learning and growing. Just because you can get them in, people can figure out the dynamics. They can figure out the right key players, and you can still wind up with disengaged employees. And that's the one killer that we want to work away from.
Awesome. Thanks, Chris. We have another question that says, do you suggest getting registered with recruitment companies, or will that give you a better chance, or should you just try it on your own?
So the best strategy is all strategies, right? We've got 5 pillars here. You need to take them on. Same thing with looking for a job. You should be talking to recruiters. You should be applying to companies. You should be looking at everybody you know on LinkedIn. That's a first connection that you've worked with. Everybody you know, like, and respect, where they are, where they're going. So the best trick is everything. It's not diet or exercise. If you want to get in shape, it's diet and exercise and nutrition, and vitamins and supplement, and you want to do the whole, and a trainer and this and reading. You want to do everything, because just on the opposite side, we talked about being a hiring person, but as you are looking to recruit the right employer. So you have to look and find out where all these options are, and you really have to know what you bring to the table. That's the most important thing. And then find what's the right environment for you to grow. What's the right fertile ground for the seed that you're bringing.
Awesome. I actually had a question. I was thinking about some recent survey data that we've collected from our maintenance and reliability community. And so finding, retaining, hiring top talent is a really big challenge that we found in that data. And then another challenge, which I think closely relates to this topic, was the skills gap. So I think you mentioned it. I'm not sure which slide, but the people who have been in the industry and working maintenance and reliability are retiring. They're getting ready to retire. They're taking with them so much knowledge and experience, and it's not necessarily being transferred very, very well to this new and upcoming generation. So it is in regards to hiring and retaining and training, how do you think it's best for people to address that specific issue?
So if you ask, if you look at history over the last 100 years and everything as a people, as a country, as an industry, whatever you relate to in this analogy, however you identify, asking your grandparents what they've overcome, everybody has overcome everything that's here. So whatever we're up against, we will overcome. That's the most important thing about being a resilient human. So as an industry, what we're up against, we will overcome. It's really, instead of looking at the big picture and a lot of what's in the news and what's advertised, which is anxiety creating, it's okay, let's boil this all down to, well, what can I do today? We know one of our service lines is consulting. And we've got a whole lot of what I call failed retirees that work for us. Folks retire, and within 3 to 6 months, they're bored, and then they come back and they want to work on a site for 3 months. So we have some contract reliability engineers and contract planners we work with who are very senior people who have that knowledge base. And instead of being in the one site they've been at for the last 18 years, they're going to 4 and 5 different sites, cross-pollinating all their information and all their knowledge base in a consultative way. So the knowledge, the talent isn't necessarily leaving, it's just migrating. And also, we have so much great knowledge capture out there. There's so many great knowledge capture tools. So one thing you mentioned, I had actually put in one of our LinkedIn videos, I do a couple a week, was that if you're in the middle of like you've got somebody, they're senior, they're really good at what they're doing, you can record a voice note and ask somebody a question and get the answer. Pop it into a transcription service, which is really cheap. And that right there, you have a note to put in the place that it needs to go. So there's a lot of tools right now to gather information that isn't the way it was 10 years ago, where we have to sit and think and type things out. You can grab videos as you go. You can grab information as you go. So the ability to capture knowledge today is far simpler than it's ever been before. So let's look at, okay, here's the problem, what's going on. Well, what do we have now that we didn't have before, and how can we really apply it? There's a lot of really great ways to do that today.
Awesome. Thanks for that info. Yeah, I just know that that's a big thing, that's kind of happening right now. So
it's a big source of anxiety, but we just have to look at, okay, well, what do we have today? Again, it's about starting. It's about moving forward. It's about progress, not perfection. I think, there's the mind can kind of put you in a way where it's like, well, this is the way I really want to see it. And you like resist that. And it's like, okay, but here's the way it is. What can I do with it? And that's creativity. And that stress and strain that you're feeling is the forced adaptation that's going to create the future that we're all looking to build.
Yeah, that's true. I like that. Cool. Well, I'm not seeing any more questions at this time. Maybe we'll give you a couple more seconds here to type any burning questions you might have.
Yeah, and if you've got anything you didn't feel comfortable in the chat, I have a real shorthand, cp@prorely.com. You're welcome to send me an email anytime. Reach out. We're here. We've got a lot of content we put out on LinkedIn regularly. I'm getting it on our company page. It's been coming out from my profile as well. So I know the link was at the top of this as well. So if you want to join me on LinkedIn, I'm the only Chris Pepin at ProRely. So fairly simple to find there. And again, if you think of something down the road, I'm happy to help. We really want to share this information with the community. We really want to be a center point for just helping people get better at this thing, because we know it's a struggle for a lot of folks out there, and we want to see you grow.
Yeah. Thank you, Chris. Well, I think we can go ahead and wrap it up. We really do appreciate you joining us for this webinar today, Chris. And thank you everyone who registered and showed up. And we hope you find these resources that we shared with you valuable.
Perfect. So, well, thanks everybody. Really appreciate it. Missa, thanks a lot for putting this together. Really upkeep. What a great group of people. So thanks everybody.
All right. Bye everyone. Have a good day.